Are you wondering how to easily create podcast episodes to help generate leads for your real estate photography business? To create podcast episodes using local real estate news? To create a digital twin of your voice? Stay tuned. Hi all, I'm Dan Smigrod, founder of the We Get Around Network Forum. Today is Thursday, March 27th, 2025. You're watching WGAN TV Live at 5, a podcast for digital twin creators shaping the future of real estate today. We have an awesome show for you. JellyPod AI Podcast Studio. Research, write, and voice a customizable podcast in minutes. Our subject matter expert is Jason Alafghani, co-founder and chief operating officer of JellyPod. Jason, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Jason, before we talk about how real estate photographers can help generate leads using podcast episodes created with JellyPod, what is JellyPod?
Great question. Well, JellyPod is an AI podcast studio. So it is a tool that enables anyone to create customizable AI podcasts in minutes with AI co-hosts or even in their own voice.
So can you expand on that?
Absolutely. So there's a process that goes from end to end. It can be as quick and easy as you'd like it to be, or as customizable as you'd like. So the first major step is you come in and you create your hosts. Those hosts can be a clone or digital twin of yourself. But as well, you can have just completely net new podcasters. You define their backstories, you choose their accents, and you pick from, they can speak almost 29 different languages. So once you've picked the hosts and you've created this character or a set of characters, you create your podcast, and that's a podcast that you might follow on Spotify or Apple or what have you. And then once you've made your podcast, the first step is to make your first episode. So the episode can start, from a blank slate. You can just put in a thought, you can put it in an outline, or you can give it sources. So in this case, you might give it a listing, let's say. So today on the demo, we'll give a listing. And then it'll take you through the creation flow, and it'll be, as simple as 3 clicks if you'd like it. But along the way, you get to customize the story arc, customize anything about the outline of the episode, then customize the script, then generate audio, and now you have a lifelike studio quality podcast ready to download and upload somewhere, or you can, with a single click, blast it off to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, you name it.
And what kind of podcast episodes have people been creating with JellyPod?
Oh, wow. Running the full gambit. I mean, we've got over 20,000 podcasts created. I think they basket in 3 categories. There are content creators who have some sort of unique perspective on the world, and some, we have across all the different podcast categories. So, you might have an arts podcast, a business one, a technology, a spiritual one, what have you. Then there is the marketing business owner use case. So, you have a real estate photography business and you want it to grow, and you have incredible imagery, but you'd also like to combine that imagery with a compelling audio track to make really cool videos that show and tell and really bring your photos to life. So something like that, for example. But these things can be the biggest enterprises to a local chess academy, for example. And then the final cluster are training and development folks. So people who are making content internally to train a distributed workforce. So they'll do that in JellyPod as well. So those are the 3 big baskets.
So why use AI to create a podcast rather than to actually do a podcast with?
Totally. Yeah. The number one answer is time. The amount of time it takes to create a podcast the manual way is significant. If anybody's tried to make one who's listening, it's not as just simple as thinking of it. There's the planning step, the research step ahead of time. There's the recording step, which can often take a few different tries. And then there's the post-production step, which involves editing, and then finally distribution and growing. So there's a huge amount of work that goes into it. So AI takes that, that giant creative process and really just accelerates it. So you can focus entirely on the creativity and the unique insight and perspective.
So are you finding that people who are creating Jellypod created podcasts are those that already have an existing podcast, or people that have never produced a podcast?
Totally. I think more towards the latter, people who have never produced. The number one thing we hear is, I've wanted to make a podcast for 3 years, or even they've tried to make a podcast sometime in the last few years, and the consistency hurdle was brutal. We saw a stat where 90% of podcasts don't make it past the third episode. So consistency is hard there. But on top of that, we've seen some really cool use cases where people who have existing podcasts aren't just removing the natural or the manual podcast, but they are augmenting it. So they create a weekly podcast with themselves and their guests and their co-hosts, but then every day they produce a bite-sized version, 3 to 10 minutes, covering some either unique breaking news or some perspective that fills in the gaps between the manual episodes once a week.
So it's hard to imagine, if you've never heard an AI created voice, that it would be as good as, perhaps better than, someone just doing a podcast. Can you share some example podcast audio so that our viewers can hear what it sounds like? And I guess to preface that is, I think what we're about to hear, you go ahead and share your screen, please, is that what we're about to hear is AI. Can you talk about that even before maybe you hit the button, just to kind of help us understand that this is not somebody recording a podcast?
Totally. Yeah, these are, and you can see my screen, right? Perfect. So yes, all these voices that you're about to hear are entirely AI generated. So AI, is a really cool technology. I'm sure, many people have heard of, ChatGPT and all the text-based generation that happens. But on top of text-based generation, there's also audio generation. So you can create voices from scratch. So here you have my hosts in my demo account, and they span almost all 6 continents. Um, a variety of different, very interesting characters created for various purposes. Even here, you'll see Jason from Jellypod. That's a clone of my voice. We can give that a listen to. Here, let me just refresh to make sure that it's in the right spot here. But here, you've heard my voice, and now give this a listen.
Hi, I'm Jason from Jellypod. With years of experience in AI and speech technology, I'm on a mission to revolutionize podcast production.
So that's one example of a clone. These take 2 minutes of effort to start. But here's our sort of our hero for Jellypod anyway. Here, give this one a listen.
It's not about what we have or what we achieve, but about how we experience each moment. This is the most profound secret of life.
So as you can see here, that's just 2 examples. And these 2 voices are entirely AI generated. There isn't a professional actor sitting there and recording something into a mic, at least not at the time that this is being generated. We have 3 kinds of voices inside of Jellypod. We have clones, we have professional voices, and we have voice designs. So clones are digital twins. You record your voice in 2 to 3 minutes, you get out a clone. The professional voices are all real professional voice actors who have since cloned their voices and enabled you to utilize them. And then lastly, we have voice designs, which are entirely AI generated, which have sort of taken in millions of other voices and understood those voices based on where they're from and a bit about who they are. And then you can create those from scratch. So I just played for you a professional voice, which was Timothy, my clone. And then I'll give you, here's a voice design, an Australian woman in her 20s.
G'day, mates. Ever wondered why kangaroos can't walk backwards? Well, let me hop into that and tickle your funny bone while I'm at
So, and as you can see here, you can define the personalities, you can define the backstories, is what we call them, which really make the kind of characters and their word choice come to life.
Could you play one more, but just let it run a little bit longer, so we can really have a sense that we're listening to AI, which sounds as good as or better than perhaps a human actually doing the recording.
Sure thing.
Tech trends, culinary flair, and the zest of cricket. Welcome to McKenna Harlow's world. Journey through captivating conversations where bold decisions and sharp wit uncover the secrets to balancing life and career. Join me as we explore innovation with a sprinkle of London spice.
That's great. Thanks so much. So we do have many We Get Around Network community members in other countries in addition to US, Canada, the UK, Australia. Take a moment to talk about the language possibilities, please.
Yeah. We're just beginning to scratch the surface. So we support 29 different languages. And what's kind of a funny aside is every voice, regardless of the types that I just described, all speak all 29 different languages. So you might only speak English, or maybe you only speak Spanish. You can record your clone, and then your clone will speak any language fluently. I was just talking to one of our customers in Norway who blew all her friends away. Not only did it sound like her, but they were like, "Wow, we didn't realize your English was so good." So you get really funny use cases like that, and the accents are huge. We often hear from folks in Australia or in the UK. There's lots of good AI podcasting tools out there, but it's frustrating when some are only limited to American accents. And that matters, right? If you're trying to grow a real estate business in Australia and you're only playing an American voice, it's not going to resonate as well. So we really believe in that customization. And beyond just sort of getting the one podcast right, what we're seeing folks do, which is cool, is extend their reach. So you have some, really cool podcasts in one language, but you're saying something really important. We have a lot of doctors on the platform that share various medical expertise. So now you can reproduce that podcast. You can make it now in Spanish, French, in a British accent, what have you. I don't have the list of the 29 countries up. It's on our home site, but I mean, every continent, Chinese, Hindi, Portuguese, all over the place.
Awesome. Jason, earlier you were talking about the traditional podcasting workflow, which might begin with researching a topic, perhaps writing an outline even before writing a script, having one or more people voice a script, then perhaps going through the editing process, and then starting to publish the podcast, to distribute the podcast. That process sounds like it takes a long time. Is using JellyPod faster than what I think of as a traditional podcast workflow?
Oh yeah, I mean, much faster. People are going. I'm not sure if someone actually meant what they said, but I recently spoke to a customer who said it took 48 seconds. But we usually kind of target more like 5 minutes from end to end. And there's some time like
Stop there. I heard you say 5 minutes end to end. Let's see you create one 5 minutes end to end.
Ooh, challenge is on. Let's do it. And this will actually be faster because we've already made the hosts. The host can take a little bit of time.
All right. Go ahead and share your screen. And I'm going to say, hey, Siri, set a timer for 5 minutes.
Perfect. All right. Ready, set, go. Let me know when I can go.
Go.
Sweet. So as you can see here, we're on the home page. We're on the podcast page. Quickly, there's just a dashboard page as well. But I'm on the podcast page. I'm going to click create new podcast. I've made loads here. So let's call this one Seattle real estate listings. Keep it super literal. Here you can see all the different languages. I'm going to keep it to English. And this will be a podcast about the most prominent listings in Seattle, Washington. I get a custom domain or subdomain, and I can add in my own custom domain. And now I'm going to add in my hosts. So there's a couple that I mentioned here. We're going to have an international podcast. We'll have a British co-host, and we'll have our Australian co-host, the two you heard at the very beginning. And I'm going to go ahead and click Create Podcast. So right now, this would be happening instantaneously, but there's about a 20-second delay because we're generating custom cover art specifically for this podcast.
Pause there for a moment. While we're waiting for the artwork to generate, I'll say that you can go to wgan.info/jellypod. That's our affiliate link where you'll save 15% in the first 12 months on JellyPod. There's also an option to get started totally free. Pick it back up. I'll yield back the time I took to say that to you, Jason.
Oh, no worries. So as you can see here, awesome cover art gets generated, contextual, Seattle, Space Needle, a landmark here. But as you can see here, there are 0 episodes. So the next step is to create an episode. Create new. So here we have a few options. We can attach files. We can even do web search if we wanted to. And maybe I'll actually demo that. You can add sources like URLs or go blank outline. Those are the main ways to begin this creation flow. So I've got a link here for a Sotheby's listing. I'm going to add it in, tap enter, and now our research engine is beginning to absorb that. You can see that it understood that, and maybe I'll even add a web search here. 2025 luxury real estate market in Seattle. Add that as a search. You can see here. This will take a little bit longer because it actually is going on the internet right now and searching through these things versus the other one that knew exactly where to go and which page to read. But as well, you can add in file sources. You can add in sources here as well. Give this a little bit of time. This may have been the time to plug the 15% discount.
Yes,
but if you
save 15% on JellyPod by going to wgan.info/JellyPod. You'll save, using our affiliate link, you'll save 15% in the first 12 months. And again, there is an option to get started totally free. And you can create your first podcast totally free.
If this keeps spinning for a little while, I may, because depending on how many sources it's finding, could be finding a lot of sources. I'll just continue so we can keep this flow going. But so I just remove that source. I'm going to click Create Outline. So now it is taking the information that it just absorbed from that listing that I just posted. And now it's crafting an outline for me. And that'll be the next big step for customization. Oh, I should have shown you. Yeah, I might come back to this, but when we were making those hosts, there was a place to put in the backstories, which I had already defined for these two hosts. But okay, so now you see the original source was digested, and it has concluded that this is sort of the discussion around this listing. A 1924 estate, you have all the sort of the big details pulled in, one chapter. So every chapter is equal to about 3 to 4 minutes. So this will be a 3 to 4 minute long podcast. If I wanted this to be longer, I could just press add chapter and say I wanted to break this up and spend more time on, what have you. I could just copy and paste this over into something else. But I'm going to leave it like that. And then I'm going to click generate script. So now it is factoring in the cool personalities of the hosts and having them discuss this, the content that we've just added in, but following this outline, this overall structure. Sweet. So now we have the script generated. So you can see here where Timothy talks, where Sheila talks, in their discussion around the podcast. My next big step is to click generate audio. a minor aside, if there are pronunciations that you really want to get right, you just hit edit pronunciations, and then you can add in some of the ones that you are most worried about. This is really helpful for branded keywords or URLs, for example. Gonna go ahead and click generate audio. And as you can see here, we're also generating a video.
So what I'll say at this point is I probably did you a disservice by asking you to do it in 5 minutes, because you could do it in 5 minutes if you weren't telling us about what it was that you were doing. And second, I really didn't give you a full opportunity to point out that at that episode, at that outline level, is a tremendous opportunity to really shape the content. So if you're not happy with the outline, as you mentioned, you can be adding paragraphs, you can be changing words, you can be adding sentences, you could add a call to action. I guess I had to talk faster because it's already been produced, but and then just that second piece, and that actually that was very close to 5 minutes. And that second part was the transcript editor that you could literally edit the transcript of the podcast.
Absolutely. Every word that you see here is much like a Word doc. You can edit the description, you can edit the title, anything at all you are able to do here. But shall we give a listen to the end result?
Yes, please.
Let's do it.
When it comes to defining luxury in Seattle's real estate market, few properties reach the standards set by this sprawling estate on Federal Avenue East. Built in 1924 and sitting on over half an acre of land, this home boasts an extraordinary 11,979 square feet of living space. And Sheila, it's listed at a cool $11.25 million. That's not just a house, it's practically a landmark.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this isn't just a home. It's like, you're stepping into history. The architectural detailing, the sense of grandeur, it's got class written all over it. But I have to say, at $11 million, I guess it comes with some champagne included, right?
I wouldn't be surprised, but let's talk about value beyond the price tag. This isn't simply about size or even the impressive history. It's how it's been modernized for today. For instance, the bespoke officine Gullo cooking island in the gourmet kitchen, which is both utility and art, or the wine cellar that can house, get this, 1,250 bottles.
1,250? That's not a cellar. That's a wine lover's paradise. Imagine the parties you could throw. Pair that with an indoor golf simulator. Hello, you're basically living in your own
Jason, let's
private
pause
clubhouse.
there.
And
And
that's
perhaps
before
what
we
you could
even-
do is send me a link. We'll add it to the We Get Around Network forum, WGANforum.com, so that our listeners, viewers can hear the whole thing. I think there was a couple places that maybe at least one where you wanted to show us how you can now get the pronunciation correct.
Totally. So right here is the pronunciation guide. And you can, so all pronunciation in JellyPod is done phonetically. So I think the one place I saw where this got tripped up was on this large number, which sometimes it can do. So I would do, you could do something like 11. Shoot, what was that number?
Well, let's not put it there because it's really great to have the benefit.
Totally.
Yeah.
So we can do something like this. This is probably where it's a one-off thing and it's unlikely to repeat. 11,000. Haven't done this since grade school. 679. Sweet. So then you add. So now every time this appears in the transcript, the audio will see it as this. And typically it gets this right, but sometimes large numbers can, especially with the comma, can throw it for a loop.
And I stopped you from editing it in the transcript. Could you explain why?
Well, you just wanted to show people the pronunciation guide. So, I mean, this is a great place to add more complex things. As you can see here, names, URLs. For example, you might want to see google.com actually written out as google.com. So sometimes this is a way to guarantee that it's being said the exact same way every time.
Well, I'll add to that is that just kind of reading ahead a little bit, is there's an opportunity to generate an SRT file. And if you're going to publish to YouTube and you're going to add your captions, that's done with the SRT file. So you may just want to keep the actual number 11,679 so that that's what shows up as the caption, because that's actually easier to visualize than 11,679 spelled out. And the same with the transcript, is you may want that transcript to be repurposed and you'd like to keep the number. So I think that's maybe two examples of why the pronunciation setting helps keep the transcript intact for captions and transcript.
That's a great shout. And I believe we built the SRT functionality specifically for you. So that was it's an awesome little inside baseball there.
Well, hopefully there's others in the community that found that tremendously helpful as
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Now what? It took you literally 5-6 minutes to create this podcast episode. Then what?
So next, there's this, if you want to share it with sort of a teammate and you just want to get some perspective on it, you can share this episode here as a draft episode to give you a look at how that looks. It'll be like this. They can review the transcript, play it, etc. But if you're all ready to go, then you hit render and publish episode. And now it'll begin to actually create the video that you see here. That was a preview video. This will be the final video that you could download as an MP4 and upload to YouTube. And then once this is complete, I'll show you all the different distribution channels that you have at your disposal. Almost there. And you can also, if you wanted to set a automatic download, that is also a setting. If you just want to go jump to YouTube immediately and don't want to wait. But now that the episode's published, you see here, you can always come back to it. You can always edit any part of this. You can edit the imagery, edit the title, edit the hosts, anything at all. But on the right here, you'll see a variety of different distribution channels. And the first of which is what you just saw, which is a custom website that's created just for you at yourpodcast.jellypod.ai. And all of your episodes will appear here. People can click into it and then watch, the full episode with audiogram. But beyond just the custom websites, we also have something called an embeddable player. So if you have a real estate photography website, for example, and you just want automatically for the latest episode that you've made to appear on your site, you can do that by just embedding this little iframe code here. It's customizable to all the various styles. But then the podcast platforms. So here are the three that we surface because these are the three most popular ones. But you can hook up almost any podcast platform out there. You just tap into it, and then there's a guide of how to do this. But it involves taking your RSS feed, and there are places that we link to, for example, right here. And once you go in there, it's sort of like a step. Usually, it's like a 5-step process. You add in the RSS feed. It sends you an email to confirm that this is, that you are the owner. You punch in a number, and then it's all hooked up. And then every time you press publish, that render and publish button, it'll automatically appear on Spotify, Apple, and anywhere else you've hooked it up.
So let's take it off screen share. And so that was awesome. I would imagine for anyone that's ever created a podcast without AI and has gone through the process of researching, outlining, writing, the scripting, voicing, editing, producing, and distributing, it's almost as if it's JellyPod enables this literally in minutes. It's really quite amazing.
Totally. And one thing that I really love, especially for, the use case, for example, of real estate photographers, is you don't always want, a 45-minute episode, right? That people will sit down and record. And people, typically have long episodes because the amount of effort that goes into sitting down and, the context switching and everything, you want to get your bang for your bucks. You want to sit there and you want to record a full, large episode. But when it comes to like a real estate listing, you probably just want a bite-sized piece of information, 3 minutes. And to get a person to sit down and do that for 3 to 5 minutes over and over and over and over again will be a difficult challenge for sure. So with this, it's instantaneous.
Yeah, I had asked I had invited you to be on the show to be able to show real estate photographers how easy, fast, and simple it is to create a podcast. No microphone necessary, no experience necessary, and it totally eliminates a learning curve. It's just really quite amazing. You had given one example. What a real estate photographer might do is take well, you gave your example. I'm going to suggest that just a couple others to our viewers. I could imagine taking the MLS. Every MLS is constantly putting out media releases about real estate in their market, and that's a great URL to go use as a source material, kind of giving, let's say in Atlanta, here's an update on the Atlanta market about what's the average price, what's the how many houses have been sold, etc., and to put it into a two-host banter, or even just you're the real estate photographer and you've cloned your voice and you're the authority. So that's one example I would share. Another is that often the real estate agents take that MLS info and they turn it into a market report that looks like it's their market report. And here's where I think it really gets exciting: is if you use, if you think about, oh, I'd really like to have that agent be my client. Now you use that agent's market report as your source material, and you make sure that that you've included the name of the real estate agent, the real estate agent's company name, the real estate agent's website, the real estate agent's email address, whatever it is that they're promoting to get business. And so now the market report is all about a real estate agent presenting the market report. And once that podcast episode has been produced, take a link, send it to the agent, and simply said, hey, just want to let you know that we featured your Atlanta market report on our Atlanta podcast, real estate podcast. And you keep doing that enough, you don't have to sell yourself. You're going to get enough agents that start to go, wow, could you feature more of me on your podcast? How about we do a profile of you? We'll take your LinkedIn, we'll take your bio page, and we'll use that as source material. And all of a sudden, you're creating an opportunity for agents to know, like, and trust you, because you're creating content about them to help them get more and bigger premium listings through your podcast. And I promise it doesn't matter whether that episode has been listened by 2 people or 10 people or 100 people or 1,000 people. It will actually help you as a real estate photographer get business. And oh, by the way, over time, if you're curating interesting content, then you're going to start getting followers who are interested in what's the market report, the monthly market report, what agents are being featured. Oh, I'm a real estate agent. I wonder, are any of my friends or colleagues being featured? And I'd offer just one more topic, Jason, for real estate photographers, is that the Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com. These companies are constantly putting out media releases. I think Redfin is an awesome example, constantly putting out content-rich media releases, and they often put they'll often list what's happening in local markets as well. So in your example where you showed Seattle, there's a national story, whether it's about interest rates or number of homes sold or days on market. There's lots of whole interesting things that are of interest in our space. Is you can then make sure that the podcast is delivering on the local angle about Seattle, about your market. And I have, I did create a post in the We Get Around Network forum. It's called 10 Podcast Episode Ideas for Real Estate Photographers, created with AI, created with JellyPod. If you just simply Google 10 podcast episode ideas for real estate photographers created with AI, you'll find that. You can always go to the We Get Around Network forum, wegetaroundnetworkforum.com, and find that particular article. Jason, I thought that I would play an example of a podcast episode so that our audience can hear what my digital clone sounds like bantering with one of the library voices. If you give me a moment, I'll get that queued up and I'll go share my screen. And let's see. Share it with sound. And here is my, looking for my window. There it is. And we'll go full screen here. So it's just a short little snippet. This was a podcast I created for Geo Week 2025, how 1,500 Matterport scans are used by the Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. And I'm just going to play a short little segment. You'll hear, one of the professional library voices that I decided to use, and then you'll hear my voice as well.
Thanks for spending your time with us. Whether you're a Matterport service provider or just curious and passionate about digital twins shaping the future of real estate today. And on that note, my friends, that wraps it up for today. And Dan, just one more thing. Your voice sounds a tiny bit different today.
Eric, yes, I am actually Dan's digital twin voice. AI was used to create our voices. To transcribe the 3 Geo.
So let me see if I can come off screen share. So that was really just a little taste. And I've chosen that whenever I use my digital twin voice, my AI created voice, my JellyPod AI created voice, that I always disclose it, whether I disclose it within the actual podcast episode or within the show notes or within the larger thumbnail that shows up on YouTube. I've chosen to do that. I like to be transparent about that. I thought it sounded like me. I was like, oh, this is amazing. And in the case of training it, what I did is I just simply took a previous podcast episode and had my video editor. My shows are typically with the guest. So we took out the guest and we just created a composite of just snippets of me and uploaded that. But you actually have a couple alternatives to that. You want to discuss that, Jason?
Yeah. So you can either record or upload, and really you don't need to have a lot of audio. 2 to 3 minutes will do it. The better the quality of the sound of the input usually gets output sound, but people are making these on their phones just by talking, and you'd be surprised how awesome it can be.
And I think if for our viewers that want to hear that extended podcast, you can Google 1,500 Matterport scans DFW for Dallas Fort Worth, and the video will show up on YouTube. And again, you can find that in the We Get Around Network forum. Jason, that particular episode, I want to say it might have been actually the first time that I was using JellyPod, and no, it was a little bit after that. I'm not sure that the dictionary existed from day one. Is that correct? So
That's true.
So when if you go back and listen to my 22+ minute episode, you'll hear some things that the words aren't quite correct. And in some cases, I would send things off to my video editor and have them clean it up. So I was super excited when the dictionary came along that now it's like a non-issue. I've kind of been an early adopter, and I just accept, okay, it's not going to pronounce something quite right, but the substance is more important than perhaps my embarrassment of my production not being perfect. Anyway, I was kind of thrilled doing that. Did you have questions about that particular episode or my use of JellyPod?
I mean, I absolutely do. Should we jump right into the larger one?
Larger one.
Oh, sorry. Well, like our goal was to was also to chat about your overall JellyPod experience, right, from start to finish.
Yeah. Do you want me to just riff a little bit, or did you have some specific questions?
Yeah, no, I have some specific questions. So I guess the first big thing was, I would love for you to just tell me what you were looking for. Like what was the challenge in front of you, and what were you hoping to do?
Well, for context, the We Get Around Network and our podcast are about giving and getting help in our niche. The WGAN TV podcast, almost 400 episodes. Most of them are live 1-hour video interview podcast episodes. We also have a second podcast called WGAN Forum Podcast. Again, nearly 400 episodes. Nearly all of them are AI created. And
Wow.
I've actually been doing that for years. I think going back maybe 3 or 4 years. And so what
Wow.
I was looking for was I created a second podcast because I wanted to be able to take industry press releases, niche media releases, and initially, I just had AI voices read them. So it was text to speech. But since our photographers are out in the field, it was just an easy way for them to consume content. Is say, okay, you can stay current with the news just by listening to the media release. I started experimenting with ChatGPT and then doing it, but it was a little bit extra work of like, oh, okay, take the media release, then put it in ChatGPT, then write it, then do some editing, then go back to the text to speech. And so that was a lot of work for me. So then Google Notebook LM came out last year, and that was like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. So 2 professional AI voices and train it on I could train it on the media releases, and all of a sudden, even a financial release would become incredibly exciting and interesting. And if you worked at the prompt, you'd actually get something spot on. So for our audience, it would typically say, hey, if you're a Matterport service provider and you're probably listening to this in the We Get Around Network forum. So there was some customization related to our audience. And then we could prompt it to stay focused on what was relevant to our audience. And so this was like amazing. Using Google Notebook LM, and I was really so enthralled with it that I ended up speaking about my workflow on using Google Notebook LM that in less than 30 minutes, you could go from media release to distributing a podcast on 19 different podcast apps plus YouTube. And so I did that speaking engagement at Podfest in Orlando in January. And the week before I went to Podfest, I just want to make sure, is there anything new on Notebook LM that I should know about? Because features change, things change, websites change. And so I'm searching YouTube. Is there anything new on Google Notebook LM? And all of a sudden I start seeing something I hadn't seen before. JellyPod versus Google Notebook LM. And I went, oh my gosh, this is amazing. JellyPod solves all the problems that as much as I love Google Notebook LM, it's got some real challenges. And I went, oh, JellyPod solves a lot of the challenges. And so I did actually incorporate JellyPod into the presentation. I didn't want to completely swap out the presentation. I was tempted to do that, but it had been advertised and promoted to the Podfest community of what that session was going to be about. And so I didn't want to not do that. And it was about creating podcast episodes for free and doing it within 30 minutes. And so incidentally, my presentation is available at wgan.info/Podfest, PODFEST 2025. And that whole deck is there, but I also have augmented it with JellyPod examples. So anyway, so the question was, well, what was it about JellyPod that wanted me to switch from Notebook LM that I was gaga about? And it was probably nearly 10 things. First of all, the ability to customize the podcast episode was extraordinary. Google Notebook LM, you'd feed it, it would create a podcast episode, and there was no ability to change anything. So I was actually taking the results of my Notebook LM podcast episodes and sending them to my video editor with notes about what things to take out, because it would include extra content that wasn't relevant or content that was wrong, or it would pronounce things incorrectly, like our call to action of visit the We Get Around Network forum. So I'd go figure out how to go create another podcast episode just to get the words right in order to send it to my video editor to say, okay, George, can you take this from time code here to time code here and substitute it so it actually says we get around networkforum.com correctly. So I was doing a lot of workaround. So as soon as JellyPod came out, I had the ability at the outline level to steer the direction, what I wanted to add to the what I wanted to add to our podcast, what I wanted to take out, how I wanted to reorganize it. Great. Now I can generate the transcript. At the transcript level, I now can edit the transcript. Awesome. Can't do that with Notebook LM. Then now getting words pronounced correctly, really critical for business. You want to be able to say the company name correctly, the individual names correctly, the product names correctly, and that didn't always happen with Notebook LM. So I think those were really the top ones. Was the customization at the outline level, the customization at the transcript level, and third, the pronunciation. There were also other things that were helpful to me. I think within a week of requesting, hey, can you enable an SRT file? I used that on YouTube, that JellyPod rolled that out. So that was huge. With Google Notebook LM, you don't get the transcript. So what I was doing was sending my podcast episodes to a transcription company with human transcribers and paying them to transcribe the episode, even though a transcript existed someplace. It's just that Google didn't deliver it to us. So it eliminated the need to have a transcription service because I like to have the captions spell the name of the company correctly, the names of people correctly, etc., not that it's random. So I love that the JellyPod created podcasts, the script is right there, and you can make changes in the script. And if you have a pronunciation change, you don't have to make it in the script and mess up the captions. You make it in the pronunciation guide, and so the transcript's still intact. And now you get the SRT file, and you can copy and paste the transcript, which we use in the We Get Around Network forum to make it easy for Google to index us so people can find relevant content for them. I liked, obviously, I don't have a great voice for radio, but that didn't stop me from creating a voice clone of me because people are used to what I sound like. And maybe there's some credibility there that the content is coming from me. That's part of what's important to me, is that people get to know, like, and trust me through the podcast. And that's happened incredibly. And I would say that to our real estate photographers. It's really quite amazing. Just as an example, when I went to Geo Week for this conference in February of 2025, there were plenty of people that certainly recognized me from my video podcast. There were people who recognized me where they heard my voice but didn't see me. And then third, they saw my name tag, and people would literally come up to me from all over the world and say, "Oh, Dan, I've been reading the We Get Around Network forum for years. We've been researching in the We Get Around Network forum, and I've been watching your show, or I've been listening to your show, and it's quite amazing." So the voice clone, even though I would say I don't have this great professional voice that JellyPod would want to license for its professional library, it works for me, warts and all, in how I speak in my halting style or whatever. So I loved that I could do a voice clone, and there's pieces that JellyPod offers that perhaps weren't helpful to me, but I think are tremendously helpful to others. So I've already figured out over maybe 4 or 5 years of doing podcasts that, okay, here's the podcasting hosting platform. And if I use this particular platform, after it gets uploaded, I can press a button and it'll create a video, and then I can it'll create
Audiogram?
No, it doesn't create the audiogram. Let me think about it. Yes, it does create the audiogram. So when we say the words audiogram, which I had to look that up when I first heard that, years ago, is that's taking the audio version of your podcast and creating a video out of it. So I figured out, oh, here's a podcast platform that has that feature of creating an audiogram, creating a video, MP4 file from the MP3 file, but then I would still have the workflow of then uploading it to YouTube and going through that. So one of the things I wish when I started my podcasting journey 4 or 5 years ago, that JellyPod, I don't have to go get a separate hosting platform. JellyPod has hosting and creates an RSS feed, and then it logically shows you how to upload your RSS feed to various podcast platforms, which is really all you need, is that RSS feed, and you're good to go. So I thought that was amazing. When I started out, let me say it differently. I have a design agency that I've been using for years. So when it got to a podcast thumbnail, that wasn't a big deal for me to assign that as just another digital asset that our design agency would create for us. But, okay, that still, took a day, or send it off to the agency. They design it. Okay, something I want to change, send it back. But I love the fact that JellyPod, like that, creates a thumbnail. And it looks like you've improved that over time, because when you first offered the feature, I got something that was simple. Now what you're doing is like, oh, that's amazing. I mean, if you sent that to my designer, I'm not sure they could have done that, that Space Needle in the skyline of Seattle, and and picked the right font. It was awesome. So I love now that you've simplified workflow for podcasting through the distribution platform, through hosting, through distribution, creating a thumbnail. It's an amazing platform. I think I get it, and you obviously that JellyPod is going to democratize podcast creation. And when I started, I think 5 years ago, I went to a class to learn how to create a podcast episode. I've been to annual conferences for 3 years just to learn all the different tools. Let me learn about, and I know my audio is not so great, but I know, okay, great. I know to put that through Adobe Podcast in Post, which is an amazing tool. But I've been studying by going to podcast conferences and going to podcast meetups in order to kind of learn the craft. And it's like, wow, none of that's necessary. It's as different of like, maybe if you were publishing a newspaper and you were cutting down trees and you were growing trees for 30 years to cut them down to send them off to pulp, and then, somehow make giant rolls of newsprint and then send them to, place for printing, and then somehow find, many people to actually drive in from the printing plant to grow the paper, all that went away with like anybody anywhere can self-publish and be in the newspaper business, or whatever you want to call that, content creators, right? If you ask me what I do, I'm a content creator, right? So JellyPod, to that metaphor, is or I should say, really, JellyPod is democratizing the ability for anywhere for. Let me try that one more time. JellyPod is democratizing podcast creation so that anyone, anywhere, at any time can create a podcast without any gear, without any microphone, without any training, without any expertise, other than their subject matter expertise in the niche that they have, in order to help guide the content in the direction that you're going. I think my last thought, and then throw it back to you for questions, is when I created that 22-minute episode on Geo Week 2025, how 1,500 plus Matterport scans are used by the Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. That was based on 3 separate 1-hour sessions at Geo Week. And I had recorded them using AI for a voice to text AI. So I had 3 hours of content. I was then able to put that through ChatGPT and say, hey, I'm really only interested in the Matterport, the 1,500 Matterport scans that were mentioned during those 3 hours. So now I've created a document within ChatGPT that became one of my source documents to say, focus on 1,500 Matterport scans and all their use cases, because our audience of Matterport service providers would be interested in that. And let's upload the 3 hours of transcript so that it contextually knows, upload the 3 hours of transcripts to JellyPod so it would have the context for the episode, and then have it create the outline. And I did work at it. It wasn't a 5-minute thing. I think from start to finish, it was probably about 3 hours. I think it was longer for me because I was new to JellyPod, and I also did it while my wife was driving us from the Georgia coast back to Atlanta. And so I'm just using my laptop while we're driving and creating the podcast. And it's a little bit harder for me on a smaller screen. So, but I was literally shaping what I wanted that outline to be, and what I felt was missing, or what I felt was too much, and then to go create the transcript, and then again to be able to edit the transcript, and then feel like that would have been something I could not possibly have done myself. Because if I had to go attend those three 1-hour sessions and take notes and come back and write about it, I mean, that would probably have been at least 40 hours if I could. I'm a journalist. If I could possibly have done it, it would have been 40 hours. Well, I run a business. It's just me and freelancers. So that would have been a project that never would have happened. So JellyPod enabled We Get Around Network forum community to have the benefit of 22 minutes of understanding Matterport in context to the Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, and create valuable content that's helpful and useful to our community. Never possible without JellyPod.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that means a lot. That's what we're hoping to do. It's a hero use case of, I mean, it's cool how much of expertise you have in podcasting. I mean, the fact that you've put in 3 to 4 years of work, just refining your craft, is incredible. And I mean, I think it's sort of a North Star for us, I guess, to help people tap into 3-4 years of experience instantaneously. So yeah, that was really cool.
Well, for anyone that's never created a podcast, this is a great way. Getting started with JellyPod is awesome. You may still have aspirations to think about. You want to be on mic, you want to be talking. I would still say get a fast start, because while you do it, when you create a JellyPod podcast episode, you're really weren't learning the workflow that you would need to know anyway. Does this want to make me stop doing my 1-hour live video interview podcast episodes weekly? No, but this inspires me to create that much more content that's helpful and useful to the We Get Around Network forum community, because there's a tool to do this. It's awesome. I often hear, Dan, how do you get all this done? And I say, I always have plenty of extra time because I use all these tools that make you like super efficient. And JellyPod takes its place as being the go-to tool for making it easy, fast, and simple, in our case, to take a niche media release that's of interest to our audience and be able to take that content and repackage it in a way that people want to consume the content, whether that's listening to YouTube or listening to a podcast episode, or for that matter, reading the transcript within the We Get Around Network forum, and also publishing that transcript to make it easy for Google to index the content to help people find the relevant content in our niche. Jason, before we say bye, was there any other follow-up that you wanted to ask about the pod, how I'm using JellyPod?
I think you managed to hit all of the things that I was hoping for. I mean, I think just to put a bow on it, I guess, if you were to tell, a really close friend, if you were to, describe JellyPod in just a single sentence, what would that sentence be?
JellyPod is a platform to make it easy, fast, and simple to create a podcast episode using a link or a PDF document as the source content. And just like you would with ChatGPT, write a prompt to help steer the content in the direction that you want to take it. I would say to friends and colleagues, I would say to our community, why I wanted to have you as a guest on the show today is to a real estate photographer, run, don't walk. None of your competitors are doing this. Now you know how easy, fast, and simple it is to take a niche media release in your market or to take a social media post that a real estate agent that you'd like to do business with who is posting about the market report in your market, and wow, how you can have a podcast episode. Doesn't have to be long, 3, 4, 5 minutes bantering about that. It will enable you to develop know, like, and trust with the agent. And all you have to do is send them the link to the content you created and say, hey, I enjoyed your market report so much, I turned it into a podcast episode. Here's the link. You don't need to sell. People will start coming back to you and say, hey, tell me more about what you're doing. I really love that. And we're looking for a photographer. Oh, by the way, or we're looking to switch. Let's talk.
Totally. And one note in that use case, you can add your a really good photograph as the thumbnail of this podcast. So as they're pulling it up to give it a listen in Spotify, they're listening to what you just created, but they're also seeing your work front and center.
Awesome. How would you summarize in 30 seconds what JellyPod is?
The ability to create podcasts in minutes. That's it.
You have to add one word. It's so important, and it's on your website.
Customizable.
Because
Totally.
the whole difference between JellyPod and Google Notebook LM is the ability to customize, and that is so important that your content is exactly what you want. Get trained on Google Notebook LM. It's free, but as soon, and it's training wheels for JellyPod. But it is as a business person, as soon as you've created a number of episodes, you're going to be saying to yourself, "Gee, I wish I wish that there was more content that I wanted. There was content that I didn't want, and oh, by the way, it didn't pronounce anything correctly." And so all of a sudden you go, "There must be a solution." JellyPod.
Most definitely. And we're just getting started. We launched less than 3 months ago, and you'd be surprised how quickly we are, we are shipping functionality. Just last week, we shipped 5 features in 5 days. So, come along for the ride. We're really excited about this year ahead.
Yes. I would say that Google Notebook LM is like an ocean liner, and JellyPod is like a speedboat, doing circles around the ocean liner. It's really the speed of innovation is really very exciting. And so I'm excited for you. I'm excited for our community that there is a platform like JellyPod to help real estate photographers succeed faster. Save 15% on your first year of JellyPod with the affiliate link wgan.info/JellyPod. Jason, thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you so much.
We've been visiting with Jason Al-Afghani, co-founder and chief operating officer of JellyPod. I'm Dan Smigrod, founder of the We Get Around Network Forum, and you've been watching WGAN TV live at 5.